Alright, my friends, good day. How are you all doing out there in YouTube model car building land? I hope it's all good with you guys. Here, we're back on the bench on the 1969 GTX kit. We're going to do some playing around late at night, of course. What else is new lately? So I've had a lot of time to do model building lately, so I'm trying to do little things here and there while I got chance. My work hours haven't been as much as I thought they were going to be, so hey, that's good for me. Less money, but I get to play. Speaking of playing, we're going to turn the camera around, show you where we're at on the GTX, because I finished off the engine last time. The paint, so it's dried, so we're going to assemble the engine. And the other thing I'm going to do after the intro is... Alright, this here is what we're gonna do now that that big intro's out of the way. I think we are gonna do some semi-weathering. My first attempt at weathering. I've got no interest usually in weathering. I usually like shiny cars, is that the way to speak of it? But this time we're not going crazy on the weathering, just a little bit. So I got a couple different colors. I got some gray, I got some brown and some red, so kind of make dirt and rust type of thing. Probably gonna do the salt technique. So that's what my theory is, but before we start into that, dig into that, we're going to start assembling the engine, and I'm going to tell you as I go along here a little bit about this car and the story on the engine. So this is the status. I actually wanted to repaint this engine. I was almost going to dip it, get rid of that orange because I thought it was too thick. However, you know what? It is what it is. I'm not going to F around much anymore. So most of it all went the factory orange, the black transmission cover or clutch flywheel deal, and the front I'm actually going to paint the pulleys only on that, and I'm going to keep the belts and that, obviously, you know, that black. So I got a couple small details. I got to glue on this guy. Did I take the oil? No, I did not. I left the oil thing on, the oil remote filter that Dodge always used back in those days. Small block, unbig block. So I gotta paint that cover orange to match and the filter white. I did have to, because this kit came with the air conditioning, that one, even though they did give you a spare one there with no air conditioning on the Hemi kit. I'm going to keep all of that for whatever future use. So that I cut off and trimmed it down, filed it down really nice. So that we'll put in the parts box there, Chuck. And we're going to glue all this together. Rear end's ready to go and painted. Exhaust will kind of maybe just kind of lightly weather up also. Now the story on this car is I helped my dad build the engine in the GTX that he had. He bought this car in 1975 and it was a rolling body with the engine in the trunk. That's the story on that. And he towed it home in the middle of winter and took the engine out of the trunk. Oh, you're losing pieces there, Chuck. Took the engine out of the truck, or out of the trunk. Oh my God, get me on camera. What the fuck, Chuck? Yeah, I get frustrated when yeah, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I took the engine out of the trunk and put it in the basement, and over winter he rebuilt it in the basement because we did not have a garage and we're just renting a house at that time. I remember him using my sleigh to he put the block on my winter sled and slid down steps. So yeah, that was kind of funny. I remember that, recall that. This was the first engine that I recall building with my dad in the basement. He showed me how to put pistons in, how to gap rings, how to install rings, I remember putting a windage tray on it. I remember building the 6-pack carbs down there. And I'll talk about 6-pack carbs another time because it's too lengthy. So all that engine built in the basement, and then in the spring he had to haul it all upstairs and install it into the GTX. If I recall, the car only had like 30,000 miles on it, 28 or 32,000 miles on it, something like that. So it was only, I guess, a 6-year-old car at that time. Body was fairly good, but like I said, the engine was blowing up, and the guy had put the engine in the trunk, and you know, as usual, storage goes back then. These cars were pretty cheap back in the day, so $1,200 was still a couple of bucks for these. Or $900. Maybe it was 900. I can't remember. It was 900 or 1,200. Memory escapes me. That's a long time ago, 1975. So anyhow, now that I did a lot of blah 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 on the background of this car and why I'm building this car, we'll continue on, and I'll continue on with the story more as we get into things on this build.
Many minutes later.
So, my friends, here we go. After a little bit of gluing and a little bit of time, this is what we end up with. The motor 440 looks like that, done up in its beauty, or not beauty, depending on how you look at it. I wouldn't mind rusting a little bit, or semi-rusting the exhaust, and my dad's car had headers on it. I remember he paid quite a chunk of change way back in the old 70s there. I'm not gonna quote exactly how much. I'm thinking 300 some bucks back, which was a lot of money back in the 70s for his headers, which was actually hooker headers. And but in this case, we're just going with the factory exhaust, log exhaust, because this kit does not have headers. And I'm not going to go digging through my parts boxes, and I don't think I got headers anywhere for a big block, at least not that I know of. I'm sure I do have somewhere, but you know what? I'm trying to keep this kit fairly basic, either whatever, blah 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 blah. Anyhow, I do like the look of it. It looks pretty good. This engine builds up nice. Wouldn't mind changing the color, a little bit lighter green on that oil filter. Factory Dodges back then had green oil filters from coming out at times. I could go with the white, I guess, the typical Fram was orange. I didn't want to go orange, sorry. But anyways, yeah, now I'm just doing a lot of blah blah blah. So you know what? Now that we made it this far, instead of rambling, I'll just say cheers, my friends. You know what? We can't do a video without doing a coffee cheers. Next video we'll do the weathering on this. I think that's what we're gonna end up doing, and then moving on to the interior, which is gonna be a basic interior, except for a little twist or two that my dad did on his interior. So anyhow, yeah, that's enough blah blah blah. We'll see you. Thanks for watching. Cheers, my friends, again, and stay awesome until next time. A nice kit, actually, this one. I like it. I like where it's going. Stay awesome.